Hi out there. What a pleasure meeting you again today on this platform on behavioral health. My name is James Komolafe and I am lead consultant at the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment Resources, aka SABA Resources. Welcome to this weekly episode on Depression Soundbite. It is a time to assess depression and how to walk out of it. It is time to recognize the critical stages involved in a depression episode so that you can take the right decision. Depression happens when you are low in your mood due to several factors, internally and externally. You are not happy. Some things happen down the line that throw you off balance, and you are finding a means around it for a process of 2 weeks without abating. Such incidences such as frustration, disappointments, failure, lack, deprivation often lead to depressive episodes. So today, we want to show you the various stages and how you can walk out. Remember, depression is a bad journey and suicide is never an option. Let's begin this way. There's this bad issue about silence, the psychology of silence. Some people out there suffer in silence, while others struggle in silence. Some are depressed in silence, and of course, we have a whole lot who are bound in silence. Some are used up in silence, in offices, in homes, in the public fora. Some are dying gradually in silence. And we have some who are deprived in silence, denied in silence, and some are fatigued in silence. At any rate, whichever way, silence is never an option. Please learn to speak up and out. I say it again, speak up and out to a professional, of course, when you are going through the silent moment. So the line to call is the Depression Hotline 08035999220. Or you are not in Nigeria, please call +234 8035 999 and you will be attended to over the issue of depression. Depression is no respecter of anybody. Know the roots, understand it, and walk away from it. That sudden loss of vibrancy, the enthusiasm, and generally low emotion of unhappiness and passivity can be traced. Do something about it today as you make hay while the sun shines. Depression analysis follows the depression road analysis, and it is simply a stretch of a rope from point A to point B in its walking. Point A begins with an overdue that ends with point B, the destination, which is usually a bad decision in depression, ends in overthrow. So from A to B, overdue to overthrow are 10 stages of depression. You need to know what they are and see which of these stages you find yourself per time. Each of these stages are knuckles. A knuckle on any stage is a point where depression makes a point. What do we mean? any pellet, whether from gunshots or from anywhere, are bullets that forces itself into an individual. And three things are deposited in the pellets that comes as a result of bullet gunshot. One, it pollutes the individual. It has the capacity to prevent the individual from manifesting his fullness. And lastly, any pellet will release pressure upon contact. So pollution, prevention, and of course pressure are three derivatives from the pillars of depression across the 10 stages. So the rope analysis stands out when we're talking of depression across the 10 stages. Now, within these 10 stages are 4 classified stages. In other words, you can actually look at the trend analysis of depression in 4 classical ways. One, from stage 0 to 2 is the stage where you have depression in weak outcomes. And at that point, that's where people say, well, nothing really happens. Nothing is going on. Then you have the second major classification, which is stage 2 to stage 3. Here you have the mild outcomes of depression. This is the stage where people say, well, nothing really much. You hear nothing much. And then the third classification is stage 3 to 8. This is where you have the terrible outcome ongoing on the inside. Usually, it doesn't show most of the time on the surface. This is the stage where people say, well, something really is happening, and that's happening within. Then the fourth stage is the very dangerous outcome stage. This is the stage where people say something much is going on. I don't know which of this stage you find yourself. Nothing really, nothing much, something really, and something much. I want to tell you there is a good news. No matter the stage you find yourself, there is a way out. Once it is identified, then you can walk out of it. Depression in the ordinary sense goes through a cycle. So you need to know it so that you can get packaged to manage in order to avoid the undue damage. The 10 phases of depression. Stage 1 is the stage of Overdo. The Overdo stage. This is the stage where an individual receives the seed of depression in the form of bad thoughts, bad feelings, wrong emotion, wrong connection, seeking to gain control. At this stage, the depression episode comes in like a seed, seeking attraction and trying to wield influence over you so that you can just break your borders and think overboard, feel overboard, especially in the negative. You know what? Negatives up to tomorrow are developed in the dark room. So please, never must you allow depression to develop in your mind. When you think overboard, you feel overboard, you begin to have some impulses that tells you to just break your personal protocol and do the needless. That is stage 1. Stage 2 of depression is called the overcome. This is where the seed of depression is welcomed and planted in the soil of the mind. It suppresses the will and downgrades the value and the quality of the content of the mind of the individual. This is stage 2. Stage 3 is called the overturn. This is where the seed of depression takes its root down the individual, turning off the good values and virtues and replacing them with the vices. The vices come up while the virtues go down. This is stage 3. At stage 4, we have the overrun stage. The tender plant of depression soon begins to grow up as a shoot, shooting out in bad characters, habits, and attitude in the life of the victim. This is stage 4. It is the overrun stage. Then at stage 5, we call it the overwhelm. The individual is not only overrun, he is also overwhelmed by the tender plant of depression, spreading its evidences across board. So what we find in place inside the victim is depression wielding influence across board. That is stage 5. Then at stage 6, depression becomes an issue that overpowers its victim. So it is called the overpower stage. What happens here? Depression plans begins to conquer inside out. The individual ceases to be in control at this point. Why? Because depression has overpowered him. So it is called overpower. Stage 7 is override. Depression at this stage does not only overpower, it goes ahead to override the person's philosophies and ideals. What happens here? There is a fierce takeover of the emotional ecosystem of the individual. The individual begins to feel naughty, sickly, bored, depressed. Everywhere around the individual is soon dotted with depression. This is stage 7, the override stage. And then at stage 8, it is the overview stage. At this stage, the individual begins to see the fruit of depression that makes his own perception and perspective to begin to look haywire. So the perspective and the perception of the individual in question here is warped, altered, and derailed. This is stage 8, the overview stage. This is where an individual begins to have mistaken identity. The loss of self-concept and also transferred aggression is common here. Overview. The man sees black and calls it white. He sees white and terms it black just because the perspective is being afflicted and affected by the inherent stroke of depression. Now, here is a point here. At stage 1 to 8, depression is innate. It happens within. Only the individual in question will know that something strange is happening within. It is not obvious to externality except by very curious eyes. So stage 1 to 8 happens within. It is the later part of stage 8 down to 10 that is obvious, seen by external eyes. That is why often little trigger on the external could lead to suicidal mission, bad decision by victims of depression. So we need to watch it and to know each stage per time so that before it leads to a dastard end in suicide bid and mission, it could be arrested. So stage 8 is the climax of what happens within when depression is at work. Stage 9 is the stage of overreact. What happens here is the fact that the individual in question begins to overreact to issues, people, places, events. The bad fruit of depression, of course, is eaten here, and the individual begins to misbehave big time. He begins to misbehave uncontrollably because depression is at its peak here. He overreacts to issues, to people, to circumstances. The last but not the least of all these stages is the 10th stage, called the overthrow. At this stage, the individual eats the forbidden fruits of depression. Cheap thoughts of death, suicidal mission, self-violation begins to predominate. The individual wants to hurt himself, and a whole lot of bad feelings, bad mood begins to predominate. He sees nothing good about himself, and he wants to do the odd. This is the point where depression has conquered the individual inside out. So no way out. He wants to die. He wants to kill himself by any means because he's hopeless, helpless, and feels very worthless. Are you out there and you are in any of these stages? I tell you what, there is hope. Pick up your phone and call the depression hotline. You will be attended to. Even if you are at the greater stages, the bad stages like stage 8 to 10, yet there's hope for you. We will attend to you, and there is solution professionally. Call 08035999220. In case you are not in Nigeria, dial +234 8035999220. Depression is a journey to a bad decision. Suicide is never an option. In the next episode, we will show you how to ascertain your stage through a simple analysis so that you can take charge and be in charge. Thank you so very much and have a lovely day. Cheers.